Testing. Can you guys hear me? Nothing? Oh, there we go. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. And thank you for coming. I'm filling in for Peter. So if you've been to one of our meetings, you've seen a tall, nice looking man with a British accent. He's on a well-deserved vacation. So again, Deb Anderson filling in for Peter tonight. We have a great topic as our featured speaker today, though. So as you guys probably peruse the agenda, well, Josh, are we on? Oh, there we go. Thank you. Trees is the featured speaker topics today. And we've got two different folks coming to talk about that. But before we get to them, we will go through an update or listen to an update from our community liaisons. And I'm looking to see if they are here yet. We don't have police here yet, do we? Or John Gaines? I know Alyssa's here. I saw you. Jennifer's not going to be here. Okay, well, we might be doing really well with our time constraint of an hour and a half. So that's our goal, and we'll see who shows up to speak. But I know the keynote speakers are here, so I'm excited about that. Did anybody here do the tree walk before the meeting? Yeah, very cool. I learned a lot of things that some I'm doing right, a lot of things I'm doing wrong with my trees, but it's very, very helpful. So, and Lowell Wise is, again, the keynote tonight. Lowell Wise, if you look him up on LinkedIn, it's English professor turned urban tree advocate. So he has studied the different ways that trees in the environment also affect our social well-being. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him today. And then the city of Tacoma also has a plan to improve our tree canopy. So John Hines, our councilman from District 1, will share what's happening with the city's efforts to grow our tree canopy from below 20% to 30%. And that's by 2050, our goal is to reach that percentage, and that means over 200,000 trees must be planted between now and then. So we've got our work cut out for us, but definitely worthwhile cause. And there's some ordinances that the city has also put in place to help preserve, maintain what we have, but then expand those tree plantings as well. So if the police are not here, or John Gaines from Tacoma Power, then I think we'll go ahead and start with Lowell Wise from Tacoma Tree Foundation. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, and I said, yeah, Alyssa's the only one. I'm thinking, okay, Alyssa, please come up and share an update from Parks Tacoma. Oh, John Gaines, is he on?
Hi, yeah, I'm online. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh. Okay. Well, thanks, John, for joining us remotely, and maybe just type in the chat anything you want us to know, and then we'll go back and read it and announce it to the group. Okay, thanks.
There you go. Yeah, you bet. So do you want me to stretch until Tacoma Police get here? I'm Elisa O'Hanlon Regala. Nice to see you. I come every other month now, but will come more often if there are specific requests. And that was at your request that I come every other month because you don't want liaisons talking at you the whole meeting. So quickly, if you haven't been out to Point Defiance, on Friday was the ribbon cutting for the Loop Trail. This is a project that has been under construction in a couple of phases for a couple of years, and it is done. And so it connects. Yay! If you've been a long time resident or not, you remember that as you enter into the park and then past the zoo and then you start toward Owen Beach, If you were trying to walk or ride a bike, you were just thrown in with traffic. And so now there is paved trail separated with landscaping so that people can walk, people can bike to Owen Beach, make their way to the zoo without having to be in the same lane as traffic. So that is a market improvement for transportation around the park. If you're a fan of music, 'tis summertime, and Dune Peninsula is again a host to a summer concert series. We have a survey out right now wanting to know what folks think about the concert series. So I don't have a QR code for you, but if you go to the website and you search for Dune Peninsula and click on what's happening at Dune Peninsula Park, the survey is there, and really just want to get the community's input on how that concert series is enhancing or impacting your experience with Dune Peninsula. Again, if you're a fan of music, I would encourage you to go to the Tacoma Concert Band Series, a different kind of music event happening in the evenings this week at Wright Park on Wednesday, at Point Defiance on Thursday, at Star Center on Friday, and at Wapato on Saturday. So hopefully the air quality will be good enough that folks can get out and enjoy that open air music series. I will also say in this area of town, starting on Monday, will be construction of the North Slope Playground. So that old structure is coming out, new structure coming in, went through a long, well, not a long, but a thorough community engagement process to find out what people wanted to see in that space. And as it is a playground, one of the things we always do is we really try and involve the voices of youth. What kind of structure are they going to want to play on? So that construction begins Monday. And finally, in line with the theme of this evening, I would let you know that Parks is working on an urban forestry and wildfire management plan. We actually had a plan that was produced for us last year that really took a deep dive into particularly wildfire management. Certainly very important. As we know, that current conditions are reminding us, and of course we want to protect that beautiful Point Defiance Park. And then as we looked at that plan that was produced for us, we also wanted to augment it more with long-range strategy at how we can contribute, how we can be a better contributor and a better partner in growing the urban forest of this community. So first draft of that growth plan is going to be produced at the end of this month. The board will be reviewing it in September. And it is work that is not only produced by Parks Tacoma, but in partnership with the City of Tacoma, the Tree Foundation, and other partners. So we're excited to be digging into that work to contribute to the tree canopy that we'll be talking about quite a bit tonight. With that, yeah. It's on K and 8th about. No, on the North Slope. So like around where St. Pat's Church is, Hank's Tavern. Yeah. North K and 8th. Yeah. 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 I don't. Yeah. I don't know that fencing is part of the plans. I can confirm for you though what kinds of security measures are part of. Yeah, sorry. So the question was, are there plans to fence the space, as there are folks that are spending time in the park after hours that are not the most desirable activity, nor is anybody supposed to spend time in park after hours. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Jefferson, we are, so since that restroom had burned, we have both money from the insurance and also because of the bond that was approved in April. So we've had initial plans for how to replace. We didn't just want to replace the building as it had existed. The needs are greater on that park now at Jefferson. And so we have some initial concept plans about how to create a new building and other improvements so that Jefferson really can serve the community as it exists today. So yeah, that'll be coming. That's one of the earlier projects on the bond list. So working on it in design this year and construction into next year. All right, fantastic.
Okay. Well, we still have extra time here since we have some folks that have not been able to join us. And I skipped over some announcements. John has to click a button before I can move forward. So a lot of the information around, when we announce up front, when we kick off our meetings, we try to highlight some things that are coming. This information is also in the printout or on the agenda. There's a lot of detail that comes behind it, so you can use that for future reference. But the National Night Out is tomorrow. How many people know about a block party in their area and are going to go participate in that? Okay, great, great. If you don't know about it, it is a national program. It's designed to help neighbors get to know their neighbors, and it's been determined to be one of the best crime prevention methods. When you know each other, you kind of look out for each other by default, right? So if you don't know where yours is, you can look up that link. Also, on Wednesday this week, the Planning Commission is meeting on the new parking or no parking minimum requirement for new developments. So if you have an opinion about that, you can send in comments or attend that meeting. And then I'll skip down to the last one. If you haven't voted, please drop your ballot off in a drop box at this point because we're close to the deadline there. And then our next meeting will include the city manager, the new city manager, to talk about his plan to balance the budget. Very challenging goal he has there, but looking forward to hearing that. So again, more information in the printout. And then this will also be for your reference on our website after. But it's, again, in this information packet that was left for you. Lots of events for trees coming up, which I did not even realize how much the Tacoma Tree Foundation actually does. And some of these look very, very interesting. 243,000 trees by 2050. Can we do it? Okay, with that, I'm going to ask Lowell Wise to come up. And he will take questions at the end. And we're going to try to, if you have a question, if you would please go to the microphone in the back to ask, or we'll try to remind Lowell to repeat the question so that the people in Zoom can hear you. Okay, here you go. Welcome.
All right, thank you. Evening, everybody. I'm Lowell with Tacoma Tree Foundation. Thanks to those of you who joined our tree walk earlier on campus. And I'll take the clicker. Thank you. So I think this is my 5th year in a row coming to this neighborhood council meeting. So thanks again for the invitation, for caring about trees. Some of you have been here before. Forgive me for repeating myself on some things. But I want to give you an introduction to why trees matter in the city, and then what we're doing about it with Tacoma Tree Foundation in partnership with Parks Tacoma, with City of Tacoma, with Pierce County. There's a lot of movement in this city, in this region, to do something about trees, to do something for our neighborhoods and invest in our neighborhoods through our tree canopy. So I'll give an overview, and then you all can ask questions at the end. And there's always great questions when it comes to trees. So let's see if I can get this to work. Great. So here's a photo of some of our team. We're a team of 14 staffers, full-time and part-time people included. And we're a nonprofit based in downtown Tacoma. Our new home is at the Tacoma Public Library, the main branch downtown on Tacoma Avenue. There's a community hub for nonprofit partners, and we are the newest member of the community hub. So we're really happy to have this new home, very accessible to the public. And in case I forget later, we're open on Wednesdays from 5 to 7 p.m. and you can come in and ask us anything related to trees and resources. I live in downtown Tacoma, not far from that dot on the map. And I always like to remind everyone that the watershed we live in starts at Mount Rainier. So it's pretty special to be able to see our glaciers and see our water system that trickles downstream. Much of Tacoma is served by the Puyallup watershed. This is the one that I live in. There's also a smaller watershed called Chambers Clover if you live in South Tacoma. But this is where we are, and it's a special place. And of course, it's native land, stewarded by the Coast Salish peoples. And I could go around and ask the room, but I don't have a lot of time to do that. So I'm just going to share some of these tree benefits. And I love the displays in the back as well that go into the benefits of trees in the city, that go into the economic and financial benefits of trees. And just, I think, a couple of framing points. Remember that trees are an investment that we make. They're an investment in our city, and they come with costs, and they come with values. They have real benefits, financial benefits, if you're a homeowner, to having trees on your property. Property values are correlated with trees almost anywhere you go. And so there's a real financial benefit to maintaining your trees, to planting new trees, and so on. So there's more information in the back if you have time afterwards. I'm thinking about the weather outside. I'm thinking about the climate. And on a day like this, we're reminded that trees are air conditioners. So the campus that we have here in this neighborhood, they're really the lungs of North Tacoma, these big, beautiful trees that we have at UPS. And some of our natural areas and all the trees on the streets and doing work in our yards, they're cooling the air. They can cool the air 10 to 15 degrees compared to a neighborhood with no trees. So think about that. Think about the max temperature in your neighborhood. Maybe it's 85 or 90, but if it's 15 degrees hotter, then we're talking about 100 degrees, 105 degrees. And so when we have these big heat events, it's essential to have trees around us to help cool the air so that we can make it through those heat waves. So that's what we'd say, what we talk about when we talk about climate resilience. We need to have the urban forestry around us protecting us because our climate is changing and we can't get by anymore without air conditioners. We can't get by anymore without trees. And so those two things are very closely tied to linked in our region here. Lucky as we are to have a mild climate and be surrounded by water in Tacoma. But trees are doing all these kinds of things. They're great for our health. They're good for our mental health. The way they help our mental health is they lower our stress levels. If you can see a tree outside your window, you're likely to have lower stress. If you're in the hospital and there's a tree outside your window, you're likely to get well quicker. There's scientific studies about this. And so there's a lot of things that we know intuitively that the science is catching up with and showing all the time more and more benefits that trees have for us, especially in the urban environment. So some bad news. As far as I know, Tacoma still has the lowest measured tree canopy of any city in Western Washington. So this is part of our story in Tacoma, and it's a big motivator for us at Tacoma Tree Foundation. It's not the only motivator, but it is one reason that we do what we do. We want to work on this. We want to be proud of Tacoma. We want to live in a green city. And so if we're going to do this, we have a lot of work to do, and it's going to take a generation to grow those benefits. We heard a minute ago, we need over 200,000 trees in the ground, new trees, but we also need to keep all the trees that we currently have for that math to work out. So there's going to be a lot of work involved. On top of this, we have what I call Tacoma's unfair forest. We have trees concentrated in some neighborhoods and not in others. So this is a resource called Tree Equity Score. you can actually look at your census block and see how many trees you have. You can see rates of poverty, how trees are correlated with wealth, how trees are correlated with race and ethnicity. So in general, this map, if it's got green, it means it's got a high level of tree equity. And if it's more orange, like my neighborhood in downtown Tacoma, we've got more work to do. And it's more challenging to have tree benefits in those places. So invite you just to go look around on this resource, treeequityscore.org, because you can really learn a lot about your neighborhood and how it's connected to the tree coverage. So really a map of trees is a map of race and a map of income. And that's just true across Tacoma, but across this country as a whole. So this is just an example of what that looks like on the ground, right? Imagine on a hot summer day going for a walk and think about which neighborhood you'd want to be walking in on a hot day. On the left, somewhere here in the north end, and on the right, this is 34th Street in McKinley Hill on the east side of Tacoma. And so these differences are noticeable. They're noticeable from an aesthetic standpoint. You can feel it in your body if you're out and about. And it takes a lot of investment to have trees in the manner that we see on the left side of this shot. So thinking about that, it's also more challenging to plant trees in spaces like we see on the right, where there's gravel in the planting strip. People have been driving on it for years. That has an impact, and it makes it harder for trees to survive. So it's possible to have trees in those places, but it takes extra work. I mentioned climate change. This is a map of heat. And this study was done by City of Tacoma in partnership with Portland State University back in 2018. But you can actually see the hottest spots in Tacoma. And you can see, if you're looking at this closely, you can see places like Portland Avenue right here. You can see Tacoma Mall over here. You can see 6th Avenue. And so these places with lots of pavement and not very many trees are actually hotter. And we want to have more trees in these places, like I said, to cool the air and make it possible for the environment to cool down during a heat wave. Because when there's more pavement and fewer trees, it's hotter because there's more heat being reflected. But imagine the blacktop down in the Port of Tacoma. That holds heat overnight. And so the next morning you wake up and you're starting off hotter in a multi-day heat event. So I love that the City of Tacoma has this data. They know where the hottest spots are, and that's one of the factors in our partnership and where we plant the trees. We want to make sure we're planting trees in the neighborhoods that are the hottest so we can eventually kind of close those gaps. So all this is something that we talk about as tree equity, and it's really just knowing that benefits of trees should be available to everybody, regardless of your zip code or how much money you make or anything like that. And so my visual for this is the sidewalk that dead ends, because it's not fair if you're trying to get around not to have a sidewalk that's completed, right? And so for me, this is kind of about fairness and just extending broader benefits to more people and more places. So with that, I stole a slide from City of Tacoma on this one, but the city's done an amazing job of tracking our tree canopy over the years. The first study was done in 2011, and it showed the city at 19% tree canopy. And since then, they've done 2 more studies, and we've actually seen increases to 20% and now 21%. This is very recent data. So it seems like we're gradually starting to reverse this trend of deforestation that was Tacoma's story for over a century. So this is really exciting, and I think it's something that all of us should be proud of. We need to give a lot of credit to the City of Tacoma for the progress they've made, and there's lots more work to be done, and we're going to hear from Councilmember Hines here in a minute. But I think this is really cool. We are actually growing our tree canopy, and we're starting to see tangible differences. So the cool thing about trees is that you can plant one and it takes a long, long time to really see those benefits develop. So even if you go out and plant a tree tomorrow, which you shouldn't do because it's really hot in the summer, but if you go plant one this fall, let's say, it's going to take several years for those benefits to really start to accumulate. So with all that, all those factors, we are seeing growth, we are seeing change, and it's really exciting to be part of it. This is a little more detail, and I bring this in because, again, this is a City of Tacoma slide, but I think with the exciting developments and the big picture news, we are also seeing places losing trees rapidly. And I brought this tonight because one of the places we're seeing the loss of trees is the North End neighborhood. So if you see over here on the left, this area that's kind of yellow, that's an area that saw a decrease in tree canopy. And these other colors are where we saw increases. So one thing I'm really proud of is places where we're seeing increases, like down here in the Lincoln district or the south end of Tacoma. Those are where we're doing our tree planting programs in partnership with the city. But unfortunately, other places are losing trees, and it seems like, well, this map over here is impervious surface, or where's their pavement, where their buildings going in. And you can see that the rates of increase were kind of South Tacoma, where the new warehouse is, and then also in the north end, potentially where people are building more housing. So this is the trick for all cities is how do we deal with our housing crisis and our environmental crisis at the same time? And it's really challenging. And that's the policy work that's happening right now at City of Tacoma. But this is kind of how it plays out on a neighborhood basis. So there are some kind of words of caution here for everyone who's invested in this, no matter what that means, how you are owning and stewarding property or how you interact with the city. We're going to see wins and losses, I think, as we go throughout the process of developing as a city. So with all that, I wanted just to share a few things that we do at Tacoma Tree Foundation. We offer tree planting. We don't always do it in the snow, but when we do, we brag about it because that was a really cool event that happened earlier this year when we had a big snowfall. So this was in Hilltop when we had our planting program there. We do a lot of planting of street trees. That's where the city can send resources because the street, the right-of-way is public property. So our contract with the city lets us plant in the right-of-way. We offer free trees for people's property. So sometimes we do pop-up events where we have just a lot of trees and shrubs to give away. And sometimes we're doing something like this, more of a full service program where we send someone mail, we knock on the door, we have conversations, we go visit the property, we decide which type of tree is suitable for the planting area, and then we can even send volunteers in some cases to help plant the trees. So this is the kind of hands-on, high-touch version of our programs, but we also do lots of tree giveaways where you can just come and talk to us and pick out a plant that might work for you. And we plant around 5,000 trees per year, or distribute around 5,000 trees per year total. On the policy and advocacy side, I mentioned that we need to keep our big trees. We need to keep the ones that we have. And for us, that means engaging in public processes, checking in with what's going on with parks, checking in with what's going on with the city or the county, and making sure that they're keeping the urban forests in mind, keeping the benefits, the health benefits to people in mind as they make plans and develop. This is really our smallest program, but in some ways it's our most important because, like I said, it takes so long to replace the benefits of a big tree. And there's a beautiful story back here about a maple tree that was lost that I encourage you to check out because it shows what the impacts of that can be. If a healthy tree comes down, I think it's kind of a tragedy. And there's all kinds of reasons why that has to happen sometimes, but it's still sad typically when it happens. And by the same token, a tree that's dying or the tree that might be dangerous we should be able to take those down and maintain trees in the interest of everyone's health and safety. So tricky things for public officials to decide, but there's a lot of good expertise out there. And a lot of what we do on the policy side is just encourage updating more common sense policies to make sure that we're getting all the public benefit that we can out of management of public lands and common sense policies. And then our next program is an education program. So a tree walk on the campus is one example. We also do hands-on workshops like the one that you're seeing here, which involves learning how mushrooms work. So we have lots of range of programs. We've got a Nature Explorers program for kiddos. And yeah, we're out and about. I think if you look at our calendar, TacomaTreeFoundation.org/calendar, you'll see that we've got something almost every week. Sometimes we've got multiple things in a single Saturday. And it's not only about trees, although that's kind of our specialty. We do a lot with other aspects of urban nature as well. So that's the gist of what I wanted to share. I know there might be questions, but this is where you can find us. We're on social media. Encourage you, if you're on Facebook or Instagram, to find us there. Our YouTube channel, I think, is also really good. We've got some short videos about how to take care of trees. We've got some longer videos about more in-depth topics. And this is my email address here at the bottom. So that's what I wanted to share up front. And happy to take a couple questions now if there's time. So, yeah. Great. Yeah. So what is tree canopy? That's a good question. The way that I think about it, it's really all of the trees, all the shade, all the things that physically cover the city. And so when we look at those maps, it's a satellite, basically a satellite image looking down, or a flyover with a laser going down, LiDAR it's called. And it's just looking at what's covering the ground. Is it pavement or is it vegetation? And the newest version from the city can actually distinguish a really tall tree from a little shrub or from grass. And so really with tree canopy, we're talking about small to large trees covering some part of the ground. I would think so. I mean, some of these little 10-foot trees, maybe not canopy per se, but they're part of the urban forest. That's another term that we use a lot. So every plant that's out there has some kind of environmental benefit. Oh, yeah. I think it probably would be counted. Yeah, because the LiDAR would pick up that small tree just the same as it picks up a large tree. Aisha? Yeah, good question. So the tree canopy goal is actually a city of Tacoma goal. And so the goal has been for a while to try to get to 30%. And it's taking some time, but right now we're at 21%. So we have to add 50% of our trees, basically, or half again as many trees as we currently have to reach the city's goal. That's right. Yeah, it's we're, like I said, we're kind of turning around gradually, but it's a big ship to turn. So I think there's a question back here. Yeah, go ahead. Oh yeah, there's a microphone here in the back.
Hi, you touched on housing developments and property development. Are there laws on the books in Tacoma that prohibit unnecessary removal of trees if you're developing or enhancing your home or property?
Yes. So it's a complicated one, and I think Councilmember Hines might speak to it a little bit. But essentially, trees that are in the public right of way or in parks or in public spaces have very strict rules, and you can't cut those trees down. On private property, it comes down to when development is happening. So if you are going to build a thing, you have to apply for a permit, and part of that involves a review of the trees on your property, and you would not be allowed to cut down trees over a certain size. However, if you do not apply for a permit, and you simply go cut all the trees down first and then go to the city and ask, there's no penalty currently. There's no structure. So that was the private property regulations were tied to home in Tacoma. And I believe what the city is working on now is how to maybe correct that if we think that's a mistake, which I personally do. Because we shouldn't allow developers to simply clear cut a lot before building something. But that seems to be a gap right now, and the city's considering other things too about how trees on private property are regulated. And I think I'll let the council members speak to that in a minute. Yes.
All right, thanks, Weiss. I was wondering what the source is for the slide with the impervious surface map. I couldn't catch the source.
Yeah, I can go back to it. It's from our presentation last fall at State of the Urban Forest, and it was from the City of Tacoma Urban Forestry team. And Mike Carey shared that these were the new statistics. So I haven't seen any of this publicly available yet. So I'm sharing it kind of with Mike's permission. But I do think the data will become available soon, and it should be out on the city's mapping portals anytime. Yeah, Tom. How am I doing on time, Deb? Okay.
I can't let you leave the stage without saying, without you and your team, we'd be at 16% now. You've actually held the bottom, turned us around. Now we've got to find a way to get it where it belongs. It's up to us to find the $250 million we need. And we don't talk about that enough. There has to be a way. Together, I think we can do it. But thank you so much for what you've done.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, and it's mutual. Tom, Georgette, Jody, so many people in the room. There's a group called Tacoma Urban Forest Friends that have been really active and just helping understand the work and getting the word out in a different way. They've helped save big trees from being cut down unnecessarily, and all that work is really critical. So it's definitely a team effort. I really want to thank my staff and my board members, who are all volunteers, the board members are, for the expertise and leadership that they bring. I think I'll flip back to just the where you can find us information. Maybe I'll just close and hand it off to Councilmember Hines here in a minute, but yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned the correlation between mental health, well-being, and trees. Is there data or studies that you can point us to that call that out?
Yeah, that's a great one. The Nature Conservancy in Washington, in our state, they have a resource, and why am I blanking on the name? I might have a copy of it. I have a copy of it at our office, but they basically consolidated all the urban forest benefits, and they linked it to the scientific research studies. So, wow, I wish I had that name, but it's escaping me. It's the name of a report from 8 or 9 years ago, and it really just consolidates all those things. We have some additional info on our webpage, our advocacy page, that might go through that. But another statistic around that is one of my favorites. They studied school children who had trees outside their windows and kids who did not have trees outside their windows, and they found higher test scores in the groups that had trees. And I think it just kind of goes, those things are just connected, right? If you're just a little more relaxed, a little more regulated, trees can help us with that, and you can see different outcomes in terms of attention, in terms of probably productivity too. So yeah, those are, I think the main link that they found is kind of stress levels. It kind of lowers our stress and anxiety. Sure, I can do that. Yeah. Janelle? Sure, yeah. So our biggest educational event of the year is called State of the Urban Forest. It is happening this year at Urban Grace Church downtown, and I want to say it's on November 10th. It's a Tuesday night, and that's where we kind of dig into some more of the meaty stuff. And this year's speaker is going to be County Council Executive Ryan Mello, talking about what Pierce County's up to. And unlike Tacoma, where we're gradually growing the tree canopy, Pierce County is losing trees really fast with the pace of development, deforestation, warehouses, all these different things that happen along with our economic growth in the region. And council member or executive Mello rather is going to come by and tell us what's happening on the bigger picture level in our region. So really excited about that presentation, and yeah, hope to see everybody there. So.
Hi, guys. There's a method called foresting, and it was invented in Japan, where you go in a forest and they linked that dose of oxygen that you get going in the forest with helping you get better with depression and anxiety. And so they say that you're surrounded with all that clean air and oxygen, and so that impacts your mental health as well. It's called foresting in Japan. So.
Okay, I'll turn it back to Deb.
Thank you. Big round of applause for Lowell Wise. Yeah, great organization. I learned a lot today, but we do have, as many of you know, our board, the North End Neighborhood Council, has a couple folks here. We have a great team, by the way. And anybody that's interested in joining us, please let us know. We're always looking for community members that are interested. But some of the folks that are here today, Jody Cook and Georgette Reuter, have been instrumental in really advocating for the improved urban forest and canopy in the area. So thanks, you guys. And I think you invited Lowell as well. So appreciate your advocacy. Okay. Next up is our council member, John Hines, who typically we have John in the beginning as well as one of our community liaisons, but we figured since he was going to speak today about the tree program that he can give us other updates as well as needed. Anything you want, yeah, it's all yours.
Thank you. Wanted to hear me twice. Thank you. No problem. Do we have slides or anything? Do I should click this thing to get? Let's see. Maybe we sent them late. There we go. All right. We'll just perfect. I was a high school teacher for a while there, so I think I got this one. Good evening, everyone. John Hines, Tacoma Council Member District 1. I am pinch hitting today. This would normally be Councilmember Walker, who's really been leading the work on this and would be talking, but I'm a member of the IPS committee. Been pretty involved with her in the process. She's talking about trees, and I'm also a local council member, so I said I would step up and do a presentation today. So I'm going to keep this relatively kind of just clear, kind of what have we done, what are we doing, what are we going to do, and how can you get involved? What have we done, what are we doing, what are we going to do, how can you get involved? 4 parts. So this one should be pretty quick. All right. So first part is what are we doing? So the council voted back in May of 2025 to adopt the Urban Forest Priority Action Plan, or UFPAP, as people sometimes call it. We need a better acronym than that, but UFPAP was adopted in May of 2025. And what it included was a plan that outlined phases of actions. So looking at expanding the city's planting and maintaining of trees, as well as regulatory and I'm not going to look up there, I'm going to look down here at my notes at the same time. Regulatory and non-regulatory tools for tree preservation citywide. And there were 4 phases. One was to steer public engagement, right? So that's to kind of get people more involved and into the conversation around trees and tree preservation in our city. There was another part about generating some policy options, and then coming around to having a budget proposal for city council consideration for kind of put UFPAP into place. So those are the kind of 4 phases, though I'm seeing I only have 3 phases there: steer public engagement, policy options, and budget proposals. So 2 parts, okay. So there you go. So what have we done? What have we done? So Councilmember Walker has really kind of led on this. She led the road show that came with UFPAP and then the policy being moved forward. She went around and talked to all the neighborhood councils and asked some questions about trees, and not just trees related to development, but trees as they exist on properties today, right? And so, as Lowell mentioned, as part of the Home in Tacoma conversation, right, as we passed the big zoning package that changed zoning in Tacoma back in 2024, end of 2024, there were lots of requirements tied to, if you come in to build new housing, if you have to remove trees, you have to either pay for them or replant them, sometimes in some cases both. There were all these protections around trees related to development. There were also, the Planning Commission added a bunch of protections around trees just on private property and normal, unrelated to development. And the council decided to pull those out and have another process to kind of continue that conversation going forward about what do we do about trees on private property unrelated to development. And as one of the people who kind of led on that, I guess I can explain why I thought that was really important, which is the tree, we had a conversation for years and years and years about development, new housing, duplexes, triplexes, whether we wanted 4-story buildings, 5-story buildings, 3-story buildings, 2-story buildings. And we had this whole conversation around housing. And people understood that as when new housing came in, we were going to try to protect trees, and we're going to try to make you plant new trees if you cut them down for new housing, and all these things around new housing. But there was a smaller conversation that was had around, well, what about if I'm never going to build anything on my property? Let's say I want to build a deck, and there's a big tree in the backyard. Well, these protections would have said, no, you can't do that. Or let's say I moved into a house, and I said, you know what, I'm moving into this house, and I'd like to add some stuff in the backyard, and I'm going to remove the trees. Nope, can't do that. Right? So there were going to be a whole swath of people getting pulled into this conversation that were never going to build anything on their lot, and they weren't going to be able to touch the trees anymore. And we felt that was a conversation we needed to have. Okay, we got to have a conversation with that, because there are people that when I said, do you think your neighbor should cut down their tree on their backyard? No. Okay, well, can your neighbor tell you can't cut the tree down in your backyard? No, it's my private property. What are you talking about, right? And so we had to have a broader conversation. Also, Home in Tacoma was just about residential properties. Well, the city's more than just residential properties, as the map showed. We have industrial properties, we have commercial properties, we have open space, we have all these other things. So this conversation was meant to kind of help us launch into a broader conversation about trees. Bear in mind, we have protections around trees related to development. So when your neighbor decides to build that duplex, he can't cut down the tree without paying for it or planting more trees. And we also passed a really robust code around tree protection in the right-of-way. So no more can you just go cut that tree down in front of your house. You can get fined for that. We're trying to prosecute the guy down the street over that cut all the trees down around the 7-Eleven. FYI, there's people who are asking about that one. So that person's going to be fined and prosecuted for cutting the trees down, because we now have a robust code of protecting trees in the right-of-way. So the donut hole of the tree policy is, what do we do on private property when there's no development happening? So Councilmember Walker went out to talk to people about what that means. We hired a consultant to support analysis around tree planting and development of a code. We created South Tacoma Tree Canopy Enhancement, paving and tree planting sites. So as part of the Bridge Industrial Complex settlement with the Department of Ecology, we were given $1.75 million to plant trees in the south end around the Bridge Industrial Complex area and kind of the broader areas down there. So we'll be working on that. And a passion of mine has been looking at our wood waste diversion and circular economy. So these are all things we've been doing, right, around that. So this is what we've done. Where are we going next? So what's coming next, right? So now we're going to continue this consideration of expansion of maintenance for trees in the city right away, right? So this is the second part of phase 2, right? So we're going to be looking at a level of service, which some people have talked about, like, hey, John, it's not just enough to protect the trees. How are we going to invest in them, maintain them, trim them, and things like that? So on August 26th, At IPS, we're having a level of service kind of presentation from the city about what would it look like to, like, what levels of service would be required to take care and maintain the trees in our right-of-ways. Some cities do a lot more than we do. Some cities do less than we do. But we're going to kind of get an idea of what it might look like and what it might cost. In August, the city manager is going to bring us a kind of a balanced budget proposal. We have to, by state law, adopt a balanced budget. So he'll be bringing this in, and part of that will be where we want to land on our level of service idea for the city. We'll review and discuss possible amendments in September, October, and adopt the budget in November. So that's kind of where we are right now. Yeah. IPS, great question. So it stands for Infrastructure, Planning, and Sustainability. I hate acronyms. I'm a teacher. I should say it. It's a committee the council has. So it is. So we meet, we have 4 council committees, one of which is Infrastructure, Planning, and Sustainability. It's kind of where all the planning, infrastructure, well, it's where all the planning, infrastructure, and sustainability topics come to, right? It matches the name. It's one of our 4 council committees. I am on it, Councilmember Walker is on it, Councilmember Diaz is on it, and Councilmember Sadalge is on it. So those are the 4 council members that sit on that committee. All right. So this is where we have been and kind of what comes next in phase 2. All right, phase 3. So now we have Planning Commission considering some draft code. So on September 9th, the public will review a draft code, and there's a review of the code in the comment period. So the way we work in the city of Tacoma is all of our land use decisions start with the Planning Commission. So if I want to say, hey, I want to change something about land use, I actually have to send it to the Planning Commission myself as a council member. The council has to send it to them, and everything has to go through them first. So they meet, they look at draft code, they work with the staff, and they come up with recommendations for the full council. So they'll be doing that on September 9th, was when they'll kind of publicly debut the code they're working on. There'll be a public hearing on the draft code on October 21st. This is at the Planning Commission. They'll debrief on November 18th, and then it'll come back to IPS and the full council for consideration to kind of close things out. And the way we've done this policy in our city so far is that some items, because IPS is working on, will come through our committee first. We'll make some recommendations, moving on to the full council. The council will decide. There you go. So what come next? All right. And then more to come in 2027. So we're going to we'll continue to review what comes out of the Planning Commission with the idea of adopting it and making recommendations to the city's tree and landscaping code. And then we'll vote to kind of move that forward. So Planning Commission will make a recommendation, of which, if you have opinions about the tree code, which some of you probably do, you can comment at the Planning Commission level. They will incorporate that into what they send to us. There's also an opportunity for you to public comment to us, and then the council adopts it finally, and it becomes the code. And that will end our phase 4. So that's kind of where we were, or what? Sorry, I'm trying to say where we are, where we're going, and now how do you get involved? So the city has a public webpage with the latest updates on the UFPAP, right there, tacoma.gov/UF Priority Action Plan. Should be UFPAP. We could just short that URL a little bit. All upcoming IPS and Planning Commission meetings are listed there, so it's like a one-stop shop for everything that's happening around trees and the code. And you can also reach out to the city council, either myself or any of the council members, and share your thoughts about trees. So there you go with that. I'll take questions about this first, and then maybe I can do 1 or 2 updates before we get too far. So with that, happy to take any questions. And I'll do my best to answer them as well as I can. I'll leave that up there. Jody.
Okay, so our city is what, $40 million in debt?
Yes. Yes.
Thereabouts.
Thereabouts. I mean, we did not talk when Center Manager Kim gets here, not to get too far away from Jody's question. We initially talked about a $40 million deficit. We've done some things like a job hiring freeze, some other cost containments. We've shaved about $8 million off of it so far.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to be working on that. So it may not be 40 by the time we get all the way to the end, but there's a gap. Yes.
So for planting trees, the 243,000 trees that we need by the year 2050 really means they need to be planted in the next 5 years for them to grow to maturity, to actually have a 30% canopy and have all the benefits of the trees. So the question is, the city doesn't have the money to do that. Obviously, some of it's going to be in private property, but for the right of way where the city does have public ownership, what can be done in order to at least get tree canopy to affect the hard surfaces such as our streets and our sidewalks? What would be the mechanism that we could go about doing that? Does that mean a vote has to go to the people of Tacoma? Does a levy have to be put in place? Or I don't know what instrument it is. But if we don't have the money now, but we want to go ahead and do something at least on right-of-ways, how would we find that money?
Yeah, one thing is talking to council members about the budget with our current budget that's upcoming. We're going to have to make some choices around what we spend money on. But if trees are high priority, making sure you're sharing that with everyone. I'm going to move to the side of the room over here and just change positions. Make sure you're sharing that that's a high priority for you all, and as many people as you can be advocating to the council with our budget process that we want more money for trees. That is kind of the best and most quick way to do that. If we start thinking about longer term funding, there are lots of ways you could be looking at levies or some kind of property tax levy lid lift to pay for it. What's that, Christina? Can't do that? There we go. Christina Kahn, who's Councilmember Walker and I's policy assistant and has been doing a lot of work on this. I'm going to let her make sure I don't say anything technically incorrect.
Yes, just to clarify one quick item,
Yeah.
Jody, the answer to your question is coming August 26th. So yes, that is when the urban forest team will be presenting various levels of service options for city maintenance in the right of way and trees in the right of way. So they're going to present a range of different options because as you talked about, the council is facing a big deficit. So they're going to have a range of options in front of them, from very expensive to probably less expensive. So that's coming in the IPS committee.
Will those be usually paid by the homeowner that's in that right of way?
We will have to wait and see what the level of service options include. I don't know the answers, but yeah, that is the phase 2. And so when that comes forward, that budget conversation is going to be the end of phase 2.
Yeah, and then there's different mechanisms by which to pay for it. So we'll just have to be ready to go for the 26th. I have thoughts. I know many other people have thoughts about how we could pay for it. But again, good conversation for us to have. Okay. Next question. Looks like Tom's got a question. Yes, Tom.
Somebody earlier asked about research on effect of trees on mental and public health. And I want to refer you to a retired University of Washington professor by the name of Kathleen Wolfe, who has spent 40 years of her life studying that issue, and whose website is one of the best documentation of facts I've ever seen. It's called Green Cities, Good Health. So if you want to find information about that subject, that's the best place to look.
Okay.
Thank
Green
you.
Cities, good health. Okay. Any other? No.
Okay. I was really happy to hear that you're fining the guy at the 7-Eleven for cutting down those trees. But do the protections of street trees also cover drastic pruning? I live in the North End here, and a homeowner clearly cut the trees down in July to improve their view. And these are really old maple trees, and they top them completely.
Yeah.
So is that also something that could be reported and acted upon?
Yes, please report that. They should have gotten a permit in order to do any of that work, right? So now you have to have a permit, and our code's really clear. You can't do anything that's going to potentially kill the tree, which topping the tree is a way to kill it really fast. And so those kinds of things are prevented. And so to do that work, you have to get a permit, explain what type of work you're doing, and they would tell them, no, you can't do that. Fifth and D, yeah. Yeah, okay. So yes, that is the other type of thing. And part of this is an education process. It's an interesting conversation I was telling someone, which we've changed the paradigm in the last 2 or 3 years where you can't do something to the tree. So right now, the grass in front of your house and the surrounding parking strip is yours. You have to fix it, manage it. The tree, don't touch that thing, right? And so like there's like you can't put, I mean, so we have this kind of interesting dynamic right now where both we have property owners responsible for the area in the right of way, but also not in control of the area in the right of way. And so there's an education process that comes with it, right? The guys that cut the trees down by 7-Eleven said, well, I didn't know we needed a permit to cut these things down. Now that's not an excuse. And we're still going after them. But there's an education process moving forward to tell people like, no, you can't do that anymore. The tree's not yours. We're trying to work through through environmental services and Mike Carey's office of kind of communicating that out to folks. I think that's something we want to talk about is like, how do we more robustly communicate to people that so they don't do it? Yes.
Okay, John, you mentioned that we can't cut or trim trees without a permit. Okay, so if you have a neighbor that has multiple like evergreen trees and with the wind, some of the tops are being blown off and falling down like on my garage.
Yeah.
And can they call people out to just trim it enough so that wind doesn't blow the trees over? And you still need a permit for that?
Yeah. Well, is it if it's in the right of way? Yeah.
No, I'm talking about in the backyard.
In their house? No, they don't. Currently, they don't.
Okay. Do you think that's going to change?
It may. That might be one of the outcomes out of this whole thing.
Literally one of my neighbor's tree
but
broke
this
off, went right through my garage door or the top of my garage.
I mean,
So,
yeah, I mean, this is the tension we're trying to navigate here, right? Which is that idea of tree, Plato's ideal tree out in the wilderness, like perfect and not doing anything. Like, yes, tree, my neighbor's tree that the top blew off and shattered, fell through my house or broke my window or landed on top of my car. Like that guy should cut that thing down. And these are the kind of inherent tensions that we as a city have to figure out because I've said before, we can't run a city on your own personal preferences, right? Because everybody has kind of a range and we have to somehow land in the middle of it. I won't make this joke, but I'll make the joke. I have a large swath of my council district that hates trees and thinks they block their views. And wants to remove them all, right? And so like that's a whole educational piece we have to work through with some of them, right? Just like, hey, no, this is actually really valuable. So this broader, this is one thing I've been excited about this conversation is it allows us to have this broader conversation about the importance of trees that I think is good. I think we'll land someplace and we'll land in a good spot. Yeah.
Are you coordinating with TPU about pruning in the right of way? Because if you have trees in your right of way that are under power lines, then TPU comes out and literally tops them off.
Yeah, they do.
Improperly prune them, which I've witnessed in my yard.
Yeah, we're trying to work with them on that. But I think, and the challenge, right, is at the end of the day, power lines have to be, we're working it, but they have to keep the power lines clear, which I'll give Tacoma Tree Foundation credit and a lot of our staff, which is like the right tree, right place program of like, hey, you have power lines here. Fir tree probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, let's think of something that's got a terminal height that's much lower and put that there. That's been my pitch to the West Slope folks who are more concerned about their views, which is like, how about we talk about encourage people to plant shorter trees, right? Like I want trees, but like maybe a little shorter so they don't take my view out. And I think that's probably more likely what we need to do.
Or put the power lines underground.
Yes. See, now you're speaking the utilities language. But if you think paying for trees is expensive, start talking about underground power lines. Yes.
yeah, we had a 10-foot evergreen that they cut off because it kept screwing up their power lines. One of the concerns that's going to happen too is, for example, north part of, oh no, it just went on my brain. The big street after Proctor on the other side, Stevens.
Yeah.
Okay, the northern part of Stevens where it makes the curve up and around the school there around
The Gulf?
37th through 40th. Yeah. So some of these people are actually paying for a view, but they don't have a view anymore because all the trees are growing up.
Yep.
So is that going to be one of the considerations of maybe taking away that the pay they have to pay for a view when they don't get the view if we can't cut down the trees?
No, and it's baked into their property assessment, right? So it doesn't say like view fee in your property taxes. It's just when they calculate what your property taxes are, it's in there, and the county handles all that. And that is probably not something that's coming anytime soon.
It's going to be a lot of people going to complain about that because there's a lot of people in that area.
They are now something you could relay to people like about that situation, and just to give you a heads up, is one of the things we did change with the right-of-way code is we added in provisions for trees on our property that if you cut them, the rebuttable presumption is that if it improved your view, you're at fault, whether you cut it down or not. And then you have to prove that you didn't do it. Because what you'd happen is you'd have people like they'd have one night, the trees would disappear. It's like, oh, I don't know what happened. Like, I just woke up, they were gone. And so now the way the code is written is if you have a house and there were trees that were blocking your view and you wake up the next day and they're gone, the city will come after you. Because the assumption is you're the one who cut the trees down.
Well, a lot of this off of Stevens is not even, still across the street yet and down on that gulch thing.
Yeah.
And they're still so high you can't see anything now.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's one of the tension points that exists, right? We did, some people like sunlight, a little bit of sunlight, right? But lots of shade will prevent some of that from happening. But I think just trying to strike the balance continues to be one. Okay. Yes.
I think right now I kind of fall in the gray zone of the private property and developing. We put in a permit to build a garage and we don't have any trees because there's not like a great place to put one on our lot. But the city is requiring that we add a tree to be able to build our garage. And the only options are right on top of our sewer and water line or right next to a poured concrete slab foundation.
Yeah.
So is there any plan on kind of like looking at specific lot for those permits versus just like, this is the size of your lot, these are the credits you need?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's something that we talked about as part of the Home in Tacoma process. It never got fully I would like to get to that point with this idea of maybe a tree bank idea where you're like, you don't plant one, but you pay and then they plant it someplace where it makes more sense. We're trying to work through that. I mean, that's probably another iteration of development code further down the road, right? Because I have folks who are running, in your case, it's a good one. I say developer, but people are like, oh gosh, those guys. But like your example is a good one, which is they're like, well, hey, look, John, I got to plant 14 trees on this piece of property. The frontage in front of my property is full. Can I plant them down the street where there's no trees in the right of way? And the answer is you can't do that right now and have it count for your property. But I'd like us to get to that point because I think that's a way to help us speed forward some of the tree planting that we need.
Yeah, because we actually don't have any street trees in front of our property.
Yeah.
So if we could like put it there, that would be great.
There you go. Yeah, good question. All right. Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I read it.
And, ooh.
Just along those lines, I'm speaking, and you'll have an opportunity to do that too to the Planning Commission, but actually to have the city say that if you have that condition or actually in any condition, that you can use the right of way as part of your tree per credit coverage.
Yeah.
And that would help you and a lot of developers. And to me, it's a thing that I don't know why it didn't happen when they first did that. It's a very logical thing because that would help improve the right of way throughout the city.
Yeah.
But there was a house over at 634 South 34th Street over by Lincoln High School, and they did a development there, and they had this beautiful extremely wide place that they could have planted trees. No trees were planted. So I think that's a change that needs to be made. And so I'll be making that proposal.
Yeah, I think one of the impetuses behind that's not a word. The impetus behind that was the idea is we didn't want to let developers off the hook to not put trees on the property themselves, right? It's like, no, this needs to go on the property. And any backing down and saying like, you could put it over there would be like, oh, we're giving up a piece of the property. So I think as the code has been put in, we've been working through Home in Tacoma as it's been put in place to think like, oh, it would make sense to do that. And so please bring that suggestion to the Planning Commission. That'd be great. Okay.
I'm actually very in favor of controlling tree canopy in people's private property.
Yeah.
But we moved here from Seattle last year, and Seattle passed that ordinance several years ago.
Yeah.
Are you aware that there was a lot of controversy over the reporting and the net? You know, the city said they'd saved X number of trees when, if you looked carefully at the data, it didn't seem like they'd actually had that big an impact.
Yes, I'm friends with a couple of Seattle City Council members, and I follow them very closely around the tree kind of policy. And they landed on a compromised tree policy a couple of years ago. That
I think it wasn't so much the compromise that the record keeping was somewhat
spotty
or misleading.
Misleading, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we have good folks like the Tree Foundation and those people and the tough folks in the room that I think are going to do a good job of keeping us accountable for the record keeping related to trees. Okay. Is there anybody who hasn't asked a question yet? I want to make sure I get to people who didn't. I saw your hands. I want to make sure.
Question. Can you plant trees on your easement? You can't touch the trees on your easement if they're there, but can
you plant them
more?
Yeah, okay. You can plant more. Yeah. And we want people to plant more. I mean, I think that's the biggest piece of this, right? You know, like when I do think that sometimes I represent the city, right? So we get kind of fixated on the city solution. I just also think people should just plant more trees in general, right? Like, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your, people down the street. Like, hey, why don't you have trees here? We did a great tree walk a little while ago. And one of my comments, like, there's no trees in the right of way. It's like, yeah, I mean, if we knocked on these people's door and asked them why there's no trees in front of their house, let's do that too. And then we'll get them free trees from somewhere and we'll put them in there for them. Yeah.
Are we still doing the tree coupon, or are we going to expand that? I mean, I know they used to be free. You got a certain amount of trees for free from
As far as I know, we're still doing it.
$30.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? 3 coupons for $30 each?
Yeah. I think we're still doing it. If we want to expand it, we could do that too. Okay.
How do you get those again?
How do we get the tree coupon? Somebody tell me. Okay.
Urban forestry website for the city. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes. One more question. Thank you. And then there was one other thing I wanted to add, but I can't. Let's go for it, Tom.
Yeah, just that we're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for our grandchildren. 100 years ago, I forget his name, the guy came from the UK and became our first park director and put in the Wright Park and with the place down by the big place down by the ferry. I don't know why I can't think of it right now, but in any event, we're the people that are setting this up for our grandchildren, who someday are going to say it was John Hines and Christina Walker who made it happen.
Let's hope so. There you go. I was trying to say, another impetus. So I'll say I want to talk about 3 things before I go, just my normal updates, and I'll go off the stage. I've been talking a long time. Number 1, it is National Night Out. It is Election Day. Please vote. That is tomorrow. Yeah, I was taught civics for a long time. I used to say the problem with America is we have a crisis with not enough people who can vote do vote. So, and especially not any off-year elections, right? I used to tell my students, half of Americans don't vote. And of the half that do, half of them only vote once every 4 years. So there are plenty of opportunities to vote, and one of which is tomorrow. Please consider doing that. So that's number 1. Number 2, the Please provide comment to the Planning Commission on parking requirements and parking minimums. When we start talking about trees and how we want trees on lots, a lot is a box, it's square. There's only so much stuff you can put on the box. So if you want trees and you want parking and you want open space, it means you don't want anything built, right? And so there's like there's a tension we have to like sort out on that. So, but if you're like, hey, John, we got to have parking requirements in the city, go take comments to the Planning Commission. If your answer is like, get rid of parking requirements altogether, take your plans to the Planning Commission. We're gonna have that conversation. I will just say, if you look at the map right now, the state of Washington has preempted us in so many ways that there are already huge swaths of our city where there is no required parking whatsoever. Just because there's the state of Washington that said, like, you can't require parking within a half mile of a bus stop, and you can't require parking within a half mile of a light rail station. So that's why the Planning Commission is looking at it. So that's on August, next Wednesday. Yes. The 12th,
Oh, is it?
August 12th. And what was the last thing? Oh, the last one I was going to say, and you all get a sneak preview, but I'll be talking about it later. I have a project, a fun project that's coming up over the next couple years, over the next year that I'll be announcing here shortly. I won't tell you what it is right now, but continue to pay attention. Christina's telling me don't say anything.
That's not fair.
Huh? I can say it? Okay. One of my so I was a history teacher, so one of my passion projects and something I'm excited about is we are going to do a flag competition because our city flag is kind of old and boring, and I'd like us to have a more exciting flag. So the city of Spokane, the city of Vancouver have recently updated their flag. They brought a brand new flag, and Spokane and Vancouver both did a really interesting flag competition where they had people submit flag proposals from all over the world, and then they had a community competition and voting to kind of land on a final flag. So we'll be talking about that. I'll announce kind of more what that looks like here soon. Just meant to be kind of a fun, low-cost community engagement activity and get us kind of a flag that better symbolizes the city of Tacoma. So I imagine there'll be some with trees on them. I got to just be honest with you. But if you're interested in what it might look like, I'd encourage you to check out Spokane or Vancouver. They did their flag redesigns last year's, and they'll work on that. Otherwise, I've been on stage for a long time, and if people have other further questions, please follow up with me. But thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm back here in the corner because I'm reading an update from John Gaines from TPU that normally comes and gives us an update in the kickoff. And I think some folks will be interested in hearing this, so I'm going to read quickly what he said. Again, John Gaines is the Community Relations Manager with TPU. Our team will be out in the community throughout September and October, sharing, why is it this moving? Oh, this way, sorry, trying to scroll. Sharing information, answering questions about TPU's budget and rates. As an FYI, Tacoma Power still anticipates fully vacating the Cushman site in 2027. After that, the property will enter the city's surplus property process. So I know we have questions about that among our board because there's two different surplus processes from what we understand. Anyway, not a topic for today, but just a quick update. Okay, is there any unfinished business that we need to talk about? Because John was the last speaker of the day, and our agenda, I know, always has unfinished business and new business, of which I honestly don't know what those would be for our agenda. Bonnie, do you have any? Bonnie's our secretary. No? Okay. Well, with that, thank you all so much for coming. If you haven't signed in, please do so, just so we like to get a count of how many folks are coming. And please encourage your friends, family, neighbors to come and join us as well. Oh, yeah. Yes, and I definitely recognize a few folks. Right. Appreciate your input and your support. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.